It's probably safe to assume Apple's wanted a portless iPhone for a long time, and I think the fact that they're still shipping Lightning on their iPhones is evidence that they don't think the port is sticking around for much longer. If they did, they would have switched to USB-C by now, like they did on the iPads. And unlike other companies, Apple will probably talk directly about why they removed the port. If they do it this year, whether or not, we don't know for sure, but still, it's probably gonna happen at least at some point in the next couple years. Might be a bad idea, I don't disagree, but here's some of the things they might do to try and justify it. Let's begin. So honestly, I don't actually think Apple is going to take the approach that some people automatically assume they're going to do, which is, well, that port could be better used for other things. Because honestly, when the iPhone 7 removed the headphone jack, if you go back and watch that part of the event, very little of it had to do with, well, we wanted to put something else where the headphone jack was. It mainly had to do with, we think there are better alternatives now, and like many times in the past, Apple loves to force people off of standards to get them onto something they believe is better and they believe is the future. In fact, if you go back and look at all the things Apple has removed over the years, it's fairly rarely something that no one is using. Occasionally you have something like a 3D Touch or the butterfly keyboard, but when it comes to ditching standards in favor of a new one, for the most part, Apple likes removing things that lots of people are using, but they just believe there is now a better way or a better alternative, and I think that's where a lot of the justification is going to come from. Apple's going to genuinely believe that MagSafe is the better way to go. It's going to be a more convenient way to charge because you only have to use one hand to dock and undock. It's going to work in so many different places, whether you're in the car or whether you're at your desk or whether you want to keep using your phone as it's charging, and you don't have to line up pins and ports so precisely like you do with Lightning. And I understand this is going to be a huge personal preference thing. Like, in my opinion, MagSafe is awesome. I'm charging exclusively through that now, and it charges my 12 mini quickly, and it feels very, very easy because I just have to basically hover my phone over a little puck. It magnetically latches right where it's supposed to latch, and boom, it starts charging. You get this satisfying little click letting you know that the device is now connected, and I don't really use the Lightning cable for anything much anymore. So personally, I'm the type of guy that could get ready for a portless future tomorrow if I had to. If Tim Cook showed up at my door and took some cement to my Lightning port and just made it so I couldn't use it, I'd be fine, and I would probably just ask why Tim Cook showed up in my house. But I know that I'm not everybody, and there's all kinds of use cases out there that I've seen people bring up that they need a port for such and such reason, and I have to say that most of the reasons do sound like things that Apple would be okay missing out on future generation iPhones. So, for one, there's some people who still like to sync their iPhone with their Mac directly, and honestly, if Apple does want to keep that around, I wouldn't be too shocked to find out that there's some way to do that over Bluetooth. I mean, Apple's direct response is probably going to be most people don't sync with iTunes or with their Mac anymore. Most people are doing all of that wirelessly anyway. They download their music through Wi-Fi, and that's how they get data on their phone, and they do iCloud backups. And yeah, if you don't like having a huge iCloud storage plan, then doing backups on the cloud are a bit more inconvenient, but you think Apple cares about that crap? In fact, removing the charge port so that you can't have local backups as easily, if anything, is an incentive for Apple, at least. I know it's not an incentive for you guys, but Apple would much rather you have to back up everything to the cloud and just say, well, that's more secure and that's more convenient, even if it does cost you more money, because Apple wants to push services as much as possible. So whenever people bring that up of like, well, I need to sync with my Mac, I need to do the local backups, I'm like, yeah, that's a great reason for Apple to ditch it, because they want your iCloud money now. Another one I see brought up a lot is wired CarPlay. Now, to be fair, wireless CarPlay is actually a thing, but not every vehicle has wireless CarPlay, but I feel like that's a simple solution. There's probably going to be a fairly simple accessory Apple can make where they put some kind of MagSafe to Lightning adapter that can dock into a car that has wired CarPlay but not wireless. And MagSafe can't transfer high amounts of data with NFC, but it could be able to quickly allow you to pair with some type of CarPlay adapter so that if you do have a portless iPhone, you just put it on the MagSafe puck and then it instantly pairs to that accessory via Bluetooth, and that accessory transfers all of your CarPlay data to the vehicle, so it does sound like a bit of an inconvenience for those of you who only have wired CarPlay. But also knowing Apple, that seems like the type of company that would be like, well, just buy a new car or something, I guess. No denying the fact that when you remove a port, there are features and there are inconveniences, okay? I'm not trying to argue around that like, oh no, it'll be easy. You don't have to buy anything, you don't have to do anything differently. No, you will. Same thing like removing the headphone jack. There were use cases and there were features and things you could do with older iPhones that you won't be able to do with newer iPhones, but the reason I think I'm so comfortable with Apple removing the port is because they've removed so many standards over the years, and I feel like with MagSafe, they've probably got an easy transition point where yes, people will be upset, yes, people will have to buy adapters, yes, people will have to rebuy accessories, but in time, everyone will adapt, and probably the rest of the smartphone industry will start doing the exact same thing within a matter of a year or two. Pay attention to the Samsung ads if they start mocking Apple for removing the charge port. I guarantee it. They're probably already working on those ads right now. Probably the best counter argument I've seen out there for why Apple should not remove the charge port and why it would come across as very, very hypocritical for them is because e-waste is an argument they've brought up in keynotes themselves, saying, hey, we don't want to ship charge bricks on our iPhones anymore because a lot of people don't use them and that's bad for the environment. And the truth is, if you start shipping iPhones without lightning ports on them, then we suddenly have this huge ocean of e-waste because there's so many lightning cables in existence right now. I already have a bunch that I'm not even using currently, and if you start deciding that newer iPhones aren't going to use lightning, and yet there's all these lightning cables sitting out there that are now going to be deemed worthless and not useful anymore unless you charge AirPods or iPads with them, that's going to be a very, very bad look for Apple, and someone in a news show could probably grill Tim Cook with that question, and he'll do his awkward laugh. I would prefer not to answer that. Which is why personally, Tim, I know you watch all my videos, I'm going to make the suggestion to Apple, coming from an Apple sheep who is concerned for the world's future, I think that when Apple does decide to ditch the charge ports, they should launch a lightning recycling program with incentives. I'm not talking about just like, it's a win for the environment, bring lightning cables to your local Apple store and then just call it a day and we'll be like, thank you, and give you a pat on the back. No, I'm saying there should be some type of in-store credit or services benefit, whether it be, you know, iCloud storage, some extra storage for a year, or giving people 20, 30 bucks of credit that they can use towards Apple in any way, shape, or form. There needs to be a reward for people to turn in their old lightning cables, and then Apple could recycle them in an efficient manner and make sure that the lightning cables are broken down and reused to the best of their ability and not a burden to the environment and not resulting in tons of lightning cables ending up in landfills. Now, if you want to keep your lightning cables for whatever reason, that's fine. You know, sometimes when I make suggestions like this, people are like, no, but I used my lightning cable. It's like Craig Federighi's not going to just show up at your door looking inside being like, it's time for lightning, give them to me now. No, it's like, it's an optional thing, okay? It's just Apple's way of saying like, we know that these lightning cables aren't going to be super useful, so bring them back and we'll give you a little reward for it. I'm not saying one lightning cable results in a $30 credit. It probably won't be that good. But I mean, like, maybe 5 or 3, something. Even if it was $1, I think that would be better than nothing. If Apple just launched some kind of recycling program, because they've been shipping lightning cables ever since basically 2012. And I know there's rumors of Apple ditching the lightning port on the iPhone this year, but all those rumors are all alluding to it just being one model, a Pro version as well. So it's not even something you should really expect to happen to the entire iPhone lineup this year. Like if you're the type of person who prefers the 6.1 inch or 5.4 inch iPhones, then you're still probably going to have a lightning port this year. But by 2022, that's going to be 10 years of shipping lightning cables across some of the most popular products that have ever existed. So that's a lot of cables, and there's probably going to be a lot of them that end up becoming useless as soon as people start switching to portless. So Apple needs to come up with something, some kind of program. It doesn't have to be in-store credit. It could be a services thing. It could be like free arcade, which I wouldn't be happy about, but it's better than nothing. Maybe giving people some extra iCloud storage could help win them over if you won't be able to store backups locally anymore, that kind of thing. And I'm positive that Apple is still going to ship a MagSafe cable with every iPhone that doesn't have a port. I'd be very, very surprised if they didn't even ship that. Probably a more plasticky one instead of the metal ones that we have now. And I know there's certain accessories some of you use, whether they're microphones or whether they're camera accessories that take advantage of the lightning port, but I just feel like Apple Apple is looking at the vast majority of consumers right now and realizing that a lot of people are probably not going to utilize this port for much longer as people are starting to adopt more Qi chargers, more MagSafe, and personally, I stand by my point that I think 2021 is just a little bit too soon, and business-wise, it's probably not going to be great because this year's iPhones sound really, really boring and stale, and because this year's iPhones are so stale, I think if there's reasons to not upgrade because they're removing things that people find valuable, then that will just hurt sales. So I would advise Apple not to remove the charge port in 2021 just to save their sales. But as someone who doesn't use the charge port myself, I would be totally fine with it. Even if they ditch Lightning on every single iPhone this year, I'd be like, okay, might not sell very well, but I'll get over it. And I'm prepared to make the portless switch now. So on a subjective level, I think we're all going to adapt. I think we're all going to get used to it. And I know that there's some people that are going to resist change, but a surprising number of people in the YouTube poll I ran were actually somewhat okay with not having a charge port. I mean, a lot of people were like, I would prefer to keep one if possible, but yeah, I would still buy an iPhone even if it didn't have a charge port. I wasn't expecting the numbers to be in that large a favor, though I guess we have a very large and present Apple sheep army here, and Samsung fans will all hate it for a while until Samsung does it, and then they'll get over it. But on top of that, I mean, yeah, also waterproofing the phone is probably going to be a bit easier. I'm well aware you can have water resistance in a phone with a USB-C or Lightning port. I'm just saying it might be a little bit easier in manufacturing if there's no charge port to worry about. And on top of that, there's probably going to be a little bit extra room for battery, but I don't think it's going to be anything massive. And Apple also might try to push the security argument because there are devices out there that have been known to brute force unlock iPhones for people in the FBI's or criminals. And I know that if Apple decides that, hey, there's no Lightning port anymore, it'll probably be way, way harder to hack into an iPhone. Similarly, it's very hard to hack into an Apple Watch, another device Apple has been shipping that's basically portless. The maintenance port is never used, and honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if Apple embeds some kind of maintenance port in the new iPhone that no one really knows how to access it, like it's behind the SIM card tray or something really hard, and only Apple has the proprietary tool to tap into it when they need to. So I think it's going to be a very difficult transition for many, but a lot of people will probably get used to it faster than you'd expect, just like we got used to Lightning when it first came out. You know, there were so many 30-pin cables that people had at the time that all suddenly became useless, and we all got used to the headphone jack being gone, we got used to the floppy disk drive being gone, we got used to the CD drive being gone, but they were all really, really critical when Apple removed them, and a lot of people were upset, but here they are, hundreds of billions of dollars later, they're still doing great. So I think Apple is more doing this as a push towards better standards, not so much so that they can occupy that space in the phone with something else. Feel free to disagree with me down below, just one man's opinion. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.